Welcome to Not Your Grandmother's Furniture, where I'm going to be taking pieces of furniture that look like they came out of your grandma's home and make them more modern so that you'll actually want to put them in your home. We're going to put the new legs on to make it a little bit more modern, redo the decking. We are back with part 3 of Not Your Grandmother's Furniture, where we are modernizing older pieces of furniture to fit more into the style of our spaces. This couch, a little recap, we got from Goodwill for $45. It was ugly, and I want to make it into something that you would actually want into your home. So far we have stripped it down. We have replaced the show wood and the legs. The decking is done. In this video, we're going to do the arms, the back, and the inside back and the back. Hopefully finish it up in this video. So let's get started. So the arm I'm altering a little bit. In the original design, there was a ledge on both sides of the arm. I don't want that. I want this side to come over smooth. So I'm gonna put this piece back into place just using my nail gun. And then I'm going to add, so I don't need to take the fabric off or strip it in anyway. I'm gonna add foam on top of this and then a layer of, I don't know if I wanna do cotton or Dacron yet, but another layer on top to smooth everything out. And I'm gonna do it to both sides. And then we're gonna add the fabric onto this section. All right, so I changed my hose over to my nail gun, and I'm just gonna shoot right into the frame. Just like that. All right, so I'm gonna use a 1/2 inch piece of foam, and I'm going to cut this shape out, and then I'm gonna glue it to this, just right on top. You can also draw it on the back side. I just didn't because I couldn't find a pen. I'm just using a spray adhesive to connect the two. You're gonna spray it on one side. If you watched, I was actually using this as a way so that I'd not overspray onto the fabric. And then you do it to both sides and let it get tacky. Now we have a bag of cotton, and I'm gonna layer that on. So cotton, you can kind of separate it into layers. Use this piece over on the other side. Then we're gonna wrap it in Dacron, so then you're not gonna feel any of the different materials underneath. And I'm just gonna tack this into place with my staple gun. We're gonna cut out some of this bulk right here. So I'm gonna wrap this up and over and staple it into place here, and then we're gonna wrap it with fabric. ideally you would just use a piece that covers the whole thing in one, but I'm using scraps of Dacron because I have a huge bag of like small pieces and you're not gonna be able to see it underneath the fabric, especially with the texture that this one has. So I can go back in and sew that together if it's gonna come apart, but I think it's gonna be fine. You know what, it's fine. I'll just take the extra time to sew it together. It's not a big deal, as I should, because I don't want to use a whole piece, but ideally just use a whole piece. Okay, it's fine. Get your panties out of twist. Once we have the side prepped and ready to go, I'm going to take, this is the outside arm of the other side, and I'm going to look at it to see if it is pretty close to the shape that I need, because we're not going to be able to just pull this over. We'll need a seam here. Fitted the arm onto the frame of the chair, and I did cuts around like so to be able to go around the wood frame, and then I tucked the fabric into the slots between the wood frames. So I'm going to show you a close-up of where I was tucking them. So down here it's tucked down on this side, and it's going to be stapled along this inside edge. Inside arm, the back side of it, has a cut to come around this piece of wood in the frame, and then there's a piece of wood right here that is also cut around, and it comes out the back side back here. So I'm going to pull this back and staple it onto the frame here. Now we're going to pull the fabric around, and we want to make sure that we are creating the same line all the way down, like keeping this the same width. When we have a bunch of excess down here, we're going to be folding this fabric up, so we want to cut off the majority of that so there's not a ton of bulk. Corners always seem to be a spot where a lot of people struggle, and really the key is to just cutting out a lot of that bulk to make a clean fold. So I cut out some of that bulk. I'm gonna tuck this. And then this is gonna slide under, create a, I'm gonna cut out some more of that because I'm gonna have to maybe pull it over a tiny bit. Okay, so let's figure out the tufts of this couch. So the back side of the couch, the inside back, is 74 inches. So I could do 6 12-inch tufts, but that's a pretty big tuft, which would be right here over. So what if I did like an 8-inch tuft, that would give me about 9. That way I have a center tuft as well. And that would be like here over, which I feel like is probably a good space. And then the tufts, how deep I want them is I want my tufts to kind of sit out to where this edge is. So from my back springs, that's about a 3-inch tuft. So I need to figure out my cuts then, that my spacing on top is going to be 8. And then to go down back towards the tuft, back towards the back side of the tuft is gonna be 3 inches on each side. So I'm gonna have 8 and then 3 plus 3, 8 plus 3 plus 3, which is 14. So I'm gonna have, and then a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So 1 inch seam allowance because I have 1/2 inch on each side. So it's 15-inch cuts. 15-inch cuts, and then 26 plus 6. 26 plus 6 is 32. So 32, I'm gonna have, my pieces are gonna be 32 by 15, and I'm going to have 9 of those. And the 2 end ones are gonna have a little bit extra because I have to be able to pull through. So instead of 3 inches on that side, I'm gonna go back, add another 6 to be 9. So lots of math, and I know that's probably hard to understand with me just kind of talking it through. But basically, if you're pulling through a slit in the frame, you want to add 6 inches. You could add less. You could cut it where it needs to be and then have to sew a pull through a piece of fabric. And then if it's just going around, like this edge is just going around and stapling, I add 2 inches. That's how it goes. All right, the inside back of my channels is prepped. What I did was I have a bigger piece. Remember we talked about that this was an 8-inch piece with a 3-inch drop on each side. So it's gonna stick up like this. And the back side, I just used some spare fabric. I put a zipper in. There are lots of ways to do channels like this. I don't normally do it with zipper, and I have seen people do it like this, and I wanted to give it a try on this piece. So I'm gonna open up the zipper and I'm going to stuff it and then close the zipper, and that's how I'm gonna get my channels stuffed with the stuffing. So I have, the middle ones are closed loops and the edge ones are open, and I'll stuff those in place because this is gonna pull through and pull through, so we need the extra pull throughs on that. So now it's time to stuff them all, and then we can put it on, and it's gonna be amazing. So I'm gonna fill all my channels up. I'm just gonna open them all up now, and I filled one to kind of see how much I need in each one. I'm gonna open them up, and the first layer I'm putting in is just a sheet of Dacron. And then I'm laying down cotton. I'm gonna do a couple layers of that. Then I got some horsehair that I'm going to re-fluff. And then this is gonna fold up like this, pull over, and zip shut. Now, I might go back and stuff it a little bit more, but this is a good starting spot to see where I'm at. All right, so we have our back piece. It's gonna sit like so. That looks nice. I'm excited. Okay. We have another section to put in over here. This is gonna slide through first. This is gonna be lovely. Lovely, lovely. Just make sure that all your notches, when I was sewing it, I didn't talk about it, but I made sure all my notches were the same side. And when I put this on, that my notches are down so that it's the right direction, especially since this fabric will look different if they're switched. Let's get it attached. Okay, so same as the arms, this back section has to come around the frame here and around the frame here where it connects. So the post has to come around. So we're gonna set that into place and then cut around the post to be able to pull through. This one up here. Okay. So that's kind of in place. And I'm gonna go to the other side and then I'm gonna shove all of these bottom sections down underneath. I might need to shimmy up the stuffing a little bit to make sure that it curves down. That's just gonna be like a finagle it into place to make sure that it's still smooth. So let's do this side, same thing. Probably better to just lay it down flat and staple the bottom one first. I should have added on like a little bit more to pull around. But it is what it is at this point. Okay, for this last panel that is next to the arm, we have all this extra fabric that needs to be cut out. So we're going to cut it out a little bit bigger than what we need because we're going to fold it underneath. And we're going to fold it underneath the stuffing as well. Like we're going to grab that stuffing in the fold. Like so. And I might cut a little bit more out of that because it's kind of a big fold still and we don't want the extra bulk if we don't need it. And then smooth it back. Just like that. So after we pull the side through, we're going to pull this back and staple it down. And we're stapling right underneath this ledge where we've done on all the other ones. For the outside arms, I'm going to use the same fabric as they used as a pattern, and I'm going to cut it bigger, about 2 inches bigger everywhere, because this is going into Curve Ease or Ply Grip. It's called both names. And I'm going to do one, flip it over and cut the second one, and just cut it big everywhere because we can cut off all this excess. This is not being sewn. Rule of thumb is if it's sewn, cut exact. If it's stapled, cut extra. So I had to add a piece of wood because my new show wood came up a little bit above the frame, so I didn't have wood to connect to above my show wood anymore. So I added a piece of wood here, and if somebody upholsters it again, they can just pull it out. It's not a big deal. For curves like this, you can either hand sew it, which I don't normally do, or you can use ply grip, which is what I do use. So it's going to come right up to the edge of where your frame is. Usually it's up against piping or against wood, which is what it's up against on here. And you're going to staple one leg of the staple into the hole and one leg of the staple into off to the side. So some people, I see some staple, or like I take apart furniture where people have stapled on both sides. It's not necessary. I do both sides if it's like a thicker area, like up here where there's a couple different folds of fabric. But normally I just pick one side and just staple all the way down. So you press it up against the side and staple the metal. Sometimes it will go through the metal and sometimes it doesn't. So I'll just put those ones back in. This is also a little bit harder for me to do. The other direction is a little bit easier. Because curvies have some give, you want to make sure that you hold it like straight so you're not getting curves, because this is what's going to hold your fabric. So if you let it sink down and have curves in it, then you're going to see that in your fabric when you attach it. After you have it up, I push all of these tabs. They have little teeth on them that your fabric is going to grab onto, but I push them partially closed. So after we have our ply grip on, we're going to add a layer of Dacron. I'm stapling it up to the ply grip, but I'm not going to cut it here. I'm going to cut it above the ply grip because you want the Dacron to protect the fabric. Now we have our fabric piece, and we're going to shove it down into the fold of the ply grip. I use a regulator. You can use a flathead screwdriver. You can use your fingers, but it definitely hurts more because you're trying to shove the fabric down onto the little teeth and hook them on. Once it's tucked into the ply grip, you're going to cut it off at the edge with some sharp scissors. Just don't cut your ply grip because you'll nick your scissors. We're going to cut out the back piece. So I have the original piece. I'm just going to cut it a little bit bigger than what it was, but lay down the piece to have a reference of how big to cut it. Again, keeping in mind directions. So if you need to make a notch, mark with a pin, whatever you need to do, just remember which way is down. And I'm also going to cut off the selvage, which is the side of the fabric, the finished side of the fabric. First things first, we're going to trim off any excess we have. This is a thick fabric, so we have a lot of bulk in some areas. I switched my staple gun to medium staples, which are 3/8. I'm going to take the top of my fabric and lay it across the top of my couch and center it across the top, making sure that I have extra on both sides. Then I'm going to tack it into place. And I'm going to switch out to long staples just because I'm going to go through several folds of this fabric and a cardboard tack strip. These are cardboard tack strips, and if you put them up against anything really, a ledge, or where you want to make a sharp edge, you flip it over, you have a straight edge of your fabric. Now I'm replacing the cardboard that was originally on the couch. So I have my new pieces. I'm just going to staple them into place. We put Dacron down, and then we're going to pull it tight and staple it underneath the frame. Okay, now we have our side, which you can't just staple on top, otherwise you're just going to have a row of staples that you can see. There are other things you can do, but because this also doesn't have fabric down here to sew to, you can't hand sew it down. So I'm going to use a metal tack strip, and you line it up on the side of your frame because it's going to flip under, and this edge is going to be what's on the side. So we line up this edge that's going to be on the side, on the edge of the frame, and then we're going to push the fabric down onto the prongs on the tack strip. Then we're going to flip it underneath itself and hammer that down. And I like to go just partially in all the way down. Otherwise it shifts. It tends to shift. So then you end up with bent prongs. And then you can continue stapling the rest of the way down. I left a section unstapled while I did this edge, and I can go back and staple it into place. And our leg screws in right here, so we want to make sure that we don't leave fabric over that we're not going to be able to get to the hole to screw it in. Next we're going to put on the dust cover. I don't like to do this with the couch all the way upside down, but I'm just going to leave it where it is. You're going to fold it over so you have a finished edge. is done. What do you prefer better, the before or after of this couch? Would you have put either of them in your home? I will be honest, I would definitely put this one more over the last one just because the fabric is better. I love the wood on this so much better. With the fluting, it's just much more my style, especially without the curves of it. I'm not a fan of that, or the original legs. I'm super happy with how it came out. Again, this is not something that I normally do to this extent. I do upholstery professionally, but I don't take off the legs and change the show wood and usually change up the back or anything like that. Normally people are just having me put new fabric on an old piece the exact same way. But I want to remind you that there are so many amazing pieces in thrift stores that are cheap, that have 8-way tie springs or quality wood on the inside that are not going to break like the new pieces that you find being sold today that are basically to be used for a couple of years and then tossed. And you can make them beautiful and you can make them fit into your space and bring new life to something that is much better quality. I hope you enjoyed this series of Not Your Grandmother's Furniture. If you haven't seen the other 2 episodes, please go back and watch them. And if you have any questions, please comment below. I'm happy to answer them. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. And I hope you come back to see the piece that I am working on next.